Who would have guessed that Silksong would revive the discourse around boss runbacks? Can't say I predicted it, but now you're giving me an excuse to revisit the topic. I did a 2-part series talking about the worst runbacks in Soulsborne last year, featuring my bottom 20. But would you believe it if I said I had a few more in me to talk about? Naturally, if you feel I've missed a runback in this video, check those older ones, it is almost certainly there. I'm Billy S, and these are 7 more Souls boss runbacks that absolutely sucked. Let me know if I've missed any in the comments below. Oh, Dark Souls 2, you truly are the king of painful runbacks. In my 20 worst runback series, 10 of them came from Dark Souls 2, that's half. And today, we're adding another 3 entries to that list. The Lost Sinner is a great soul holder fought in the depths of Sinner's Rise. She's considered one of the toughest of the early game fights due to her long-reaching weapon and her high damage output, combined with some interesting dodge timings. So you're likely to die to her a few times, which will allow you to experience her runback. Now, the reason it didn't make my bottom 20 is because once you get to the end of the large elevator shaft that takes you to the depths of Sinner's Rise, it's technically a straight shot back to the boss. If you did your dues on your first run through, the gates on the far side should be open, allowing you to simply run to the fog gate, with the main danger being a few of those exploding hollows and that extremely narrow bridge you walk across before you reach the arena. However, if you hesitate for even a moment, you'll find yourself accosted by a respawning Flexile Sentry mini-boss, which, while it makes sense as an enemy placement if you factor in the lore, is still a wild choice from the developers. There are 2 ways to reach Lost Bastille, either the Pursuer fight in the Forest of the Fallen Giants, or by going through No Man's Wharf, which can be reached via Hyde's Tower of Flame, and the boss of No Man's Wharf is a Flexile Sentry. I'm not saying these are hard opponents, but the idea of taking down a main boss and almost immediately making it a mini-boss just 2 areas ahead is insane to me. If it didn't respawn, I'd actually respect the inclusion, but having a respawning Flexile Sentry only serves to make the run back to the Lost Sinner a little more painful than it needs to be, and I can't say I'm here for it if I do say so myself. If Dark Souls 2 is the king of bad boss runbacks, then Demon Souls is the queen. It's a game entirely based around the concept of what if there were no checkpoints and we'd span a wheel to determine if each level would have decent shortcuts or not. And yet, the Flamelurker runback is quite the anomaly, because technically the quickest form of the runback is a shortcut through the majority of 2-2 the Tunnel City, as you go right from the Archstone and drop down a vast series of platforms in a large vertical shaft to reach the bottom where the fog gate awaits. You don't even need to interact with a majority of the level if you don't want to, and I certainly don't want to, but I'm still highlighting Flamelurker's runback in this video because it's one of the few examples of a purely vertical runback in the series. Platforming is already quite contentious, with the older titles having awful jumping mechanics that make slow walking off ledges the only viable movement option. It's no Elden Ring, let me tell you. Just the fear of needing to carefully make my way down the mineshaft and knowing full well that a single bad step could result in my death keeps me fully on edge. At least Demon Souls doesn't punish you for fall damage, as you're able to carry a massive supply of healing items, so that's not an issue. But then you reach the bottom of the pit, and if you're not quick enough to exit, the local lava worms will greet you with fiery peril. And if you're not accustomed to these games, you'll have to seriously get used to this runback due to Flamelurker being one of the toughest fights in the game. I can handle a horizontal runback because going in a straight line, or at least being on a level playing field, makes navigation feel seamless. But the moment you ask me to remember how to drop down various platforms, I'm gonna make mistakes, and I guarantee I'm also going to get frustrated. Back to Dark Souls 2, we've got a runback that only makes this list because of a recent experience I had. An experience from a couple days ago, in fact. I'm currently in the process of recording a Dark Souls 2 Soul Level 1 run for my channel members, $4.99 a month, and in an upcoming video I'm going to be facing Elana, the Squalid Queen, in the Shulva DLC. I'm playing on the PC version of Scholar, and that is important because this runback is only bad on the PC. For some reason, the Steam PC version has this odd bug affecting it. Every time you die, the game decides to micro-stutter, and the more you die, the worse the micro-stutter gets. This on its own is already a bit of a nightmare, requiring me to reset the game or find workarounds to avoid. But because of the micro-stutter, the player character's movement decides that it's done playing by regular rules, with my avatar deciding that the life of a figure skater is more important than the life of a Souls protagonist. And Elana's runback is a perfect example of how this micro-stutter can cause real friction. All you have to do is drop down a few short blocks to reach the bottom of the Dragon Sanctum. It should take less than 20 seconds, barely even a blip in anyone's playthrough. But look at the way my character decides to slide off the platform's Looney Tunes style, falling to his death because Dark Souls 2 characters have the most brittle bones you've ever seen. I'm just gonna let this footage I have been recording play out for you. I'm lightly tapping my analog stick the same way you would walk in any other game, but for some reason Dark Souls 2 Scholar PC Steam Edition sees it as a full steam ahead thanks to whatever the micro-stutter issue is, leading to so many deaths and moments of damage while trying to get down the simplest of platforming to fight a very annoying boss at Soul Level 1. And the crazy part, this glitch seemingly isn't because of Dark Souls 2, but because of an update to Steam itself. Gabe is actively trying to sabotage my Dark Souls 2 run, and I can't help thinking that is both hilarious and painful in equal measures. I doubt anyone else will experience this unique glitch, especially if you're on console, where you can safely walk off platforms without fearing for an invisible banana peel. Congratulations! But if you're on Steam, I'm warning you, watch yourself. And if you're on PC, watch me by parrying that subscribe button, as I'm trying to reach 50,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and pointing that out is the only way to get people to subscribe in 2025. Now, on to Elden Ring? While the main bosses of Elden Ring are practically runbackless, with Rennala and Placidusax being the main exceptions, that isn't the same for many of the various bosses found within Elden Ring's caves. Catacombs at least have the decency to have the boss room be near the start of the dungeon, allowing for ease of runback, but caverns, they don't give a fuck. You will run through the whole cave to reface whatever boss you happen to be up against and you will like it. For me, the most infamous of these cavern runbacks is the abandoned cave runback in Caelid, where you face the Cleanrot Knight duo. Defeating them gets you the Gold Scarab, a 20% rune increase from defeated enemies, and this cavern can also be accessed very early into your playthrough if you want to take that risk. That risk being that the entire cavern is stewing and spewing with scarlet rot. Obviously this makes sense, you're in Caelid, rot capital of the world. Woo! Melania nuked it and you're reaping the rewards of her meltdown. But fuck me, if you don't have Flame Cleanse Me to clean the Scarlet Rot, you basically have to pray that you don't get afflicted with the status effect while running through that first portion of the cave. Combine that with various geysers that damage you if you're caught in them, and I can't find anyone willing to wander in here without the appropriate protection. Unless you were me on my first playthrough and you thought, let's go into this cave and bash my head against it for an hour. Then you get inside and have to run from poisoned Miranda flowers, rats, and other creatures, and the tiny cavern that actually leads to the boss is on top of a small upper ledge that most people won't even check first. And then the two bosses can inflict Scarlet Rot anyway, so you have to actually play carefully and not take too much status build-up, lest the runbacks start afresh. I felt validated looking at a walkthrough of this cavern and seeing so many YouTube comments echoing my sentiments. Validation feels good. Scarlet Rot feels bad. With that detour out of the way, back to Demon Souls. We have a boss run back that should only take a couple of moments, and yet somehow gives me far more trouble than I care to admit. When you face the archdemons of Demon Souls, their boss arenas are seconds away from your previous checkpoint with no enemies to face in between, except for the old monk. For some reason, he decided to be special and include 6 of those insectoid creatures from 3-2, as well as 2 red mind flayers to protect his chamber. Now, the insects aren't an issue, they die in a couple hits, they don't hurt all that much when they attack back, but those 2 red mind flayers are another story. Similar to their brother on the way to the man-eater fight in 3-2, this pair guard the stairwell leading to the boss room with aplomb. They never turn around to walk back up the stairs, so it's impossible to sneak up on either of them, which means you have to dodge their magic to try and get your hits in. Except depending on your weapon type, you might find your attacks bouncing off of the walls due to the staircase being very enclosed. There is nothing worse than missing a dodge, getting paralyzed, and knowing you're about to get impaled by a mind spike and you have to take it. But I can't help thinking this is also just bad design, because the old monk is a PvP fight, where another player can be summoned to take on the boss's role. Why waste that player's time by having them be summoned, only to see the person they're slated to fight against die on the staircase up to the arena? I'd certainly feel a bit shortchanged, and I know the Soulsborne PvP community is quite passionate about getting to actually PvP in their PvP instances. And again, this is the only runback of the 4 archdemons that actually has any enemies. Dragon God, Storm King, and Maiden Estrella are vibing in their arenas, and there's no danger between you and their fog gates. Old Monk wanted to be so quirky so badly. And the final mention of Dark Souls 2 on today's list, I have to talk about the Ruin Sentinels in the Lost Bastille. While not nearly as painful a runback as some of the others in the game, I will say that as of the release of Scholar of the First Sin, this one's given me a lot of trouble. You have to first unpetrify this man hanging outside this doorway, which is your only path into the complex. Only when you open the door, the army decides to storm you in classic Dark Souls 2 fashion, as all the enemies inside are immediately aggroed onto your location like a single 20-something twink in a new city on Grindr. And simply attempting to run past them isn't a foolproof plan, as it doesn't work out. You can open a shortcut door in this lower room, but the only way to access this door from the outside is to line up a very nerve-wracking jump from an upper ledge. I don't think I need to tell you how easily that can go wrong, right? And yet it's something you have to learn, as it's by far the easiest route back to the boss. Do that jump, climb a nearby ladder, and you end up behind all the opponents that swarmed you prior, with none of the aggro locked onto you. So you either have to fight your way through hordes of enemies over and over and over again until they despawn, or you have to do a genuinely tricky platforming jump that has a solid 80% success rate, but that 20% fail rate will haunt you for eternity. And you just know you'll be facing this run back multiple times because the Ruined Sentinels are also a gank fight. It's not as bad as some of the bottom 20 runbacks, but it did start a trend in Scholar of the First Sin that a lot of the more egregious runbacks in my previous videos continued. Finally, let's end on a runback that many players wanted included in my original rankings last year, the Dirty Colossus runback from Demon Souls. To explain, my main reasoning for not including this runback in my bottom 20 is because once you do unlock the shortcut of 5-2, the path to the boss is made exponentially easier. But what many commenters pointed out, and it's a valid note, is that many players won't even realize that 5-2, the Swamp of Sorrow, has a shortcut, as it's incredibly well hidden and out of the way of the main path. You're more likely to find the boss fog in the swamp settlement long before you find the cliff path leading to a single plank of wood you can kick down, meaning that for many players, 5-2 itself was the runback. And the Swamp of Sorrow has the rare distinction of being one of the only FromSoft swamps where you cannot roll in the water. You get animation locked for a short while, leaving you open to whatever you were trying to roll away from. Not even the nearby cat ring and its goofy PNG cat in the PS3 version can save this place's public image. The fact that they don't even include a mid-swamp shortcut in the large fence that separates both halves of the poison is something that baffled me when I played for the first time. It just feels obvious that there should be a shortcut in the swamp itself prior to reaching the settlement to make the run back less tedious if you die mid-swamp exploration. And even when you reach the swamp settlement, it's a nest of wooden planks and platforms that a lot of players can find confusing to navigate. Luckily, the area boss is woefully easy, which means you likely won't need to do this run back more than once, but I can recognize for players who simply didn't find the level shortcut, rerunning through the swamp every single time would drive you up the wall, and I admit, it would make me consider drastic action. And that's my list. I don't think there are any more boss runbacks I can talk about that are bad in this series, but I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below if there are any I missed in this video that weren't included in the previous one, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to parry that subscribe button to stay up to date on my future videos. 50,000 subscribers, let's go, come on, we can make it! I want to give a shout out to my YouTube channel members, $4.99 a month, you get early access to future videos, you get a shout out in the description at the end of videos as well, and you get some special exclusive series just for you. If you want to follow me, I have a Discord, I have a Twitch, I have a Blue Sky, and I stream weekly here on YouTube, so there are many ways to keep in contact. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time, adios.